Right. Cult of the Lamb, a game in which you are a lamb, stay with me, who is resurrected by a tentacled elder god and told to build a cult in exchange for not being dead anymore, which, frankly, is the most honest depiction of organized religion I've ever seen in a video game.
And I was going to say something profound about that, but you already went there, so now I'm just standing here nodding like one of the Lamb's brainwashed followers.
Welcome to the fold.
I hate you.
The good stuff. 5 points in favor of our woolly overlords. Let's start with what everyone notices first. This game looks absolutely adorable while depicting things that would make a Victorian clergyman faint into his own breeches. You've got these round, doe-eyed little creatures with rosy cheeks performing human sacrifices and eating the bodies of dissidents, all rendered in a palette that looks like it was designed to sell plush toys to 6-year-olds.
It's the dissonance that makes it work. Massive Monster, the studio, tiny team, 2 people at the core, understood that horror lands harder when it's wearing a onesie. You're giggling at how cute everything is. And then a follower dies of old age mid-sermon, and you feel genuinely bad for approximately 4 seconds before you compost the corpse for fertilizer.
The art direction is so confident. Nothing feels accidental. Every death animation, every cult ritual, every demonic boss design, it all coheres into this singular vision that screams, we knew exactly what we were making.
Which, for an indie game, is rarer than you'd think.
For any game.
Let's talk about the dungeon crawling half, because I feel like it gets unfairly overshadowed by the base building half, and it genuinely holds up.
It's a solid, if not revelatory, hack-and-slash roguelite. You run through procedurally generated floors, you pick up tarot cards that modify your build, you find cursed weapons that might be brilliant or might be a cruel joke from the developers, and you murder your way to a bishop at the end who is usually some form of horrifying creature wearing the skin of something innocent.
The weapon variety keeps it fresh. There's something genuinely satisfying about getting a ridiculous fleece and curse combo that makes you an absolute engine of death. Like, I had a run where I had a hammer that hit everything around me and a fleece that added poison to every hit, and I just waltzed through the final boss like I was on a very violent afternoon stroll.
The tarot card system gives you just enough agency that runs feel distinct without drowning you in spreadsheet decisions. You're not optimizing a build so much as vibing into one, which suits the game's tone perfectly.
Vibing into a build. That's going on my resume.
Now here's where the game earns its subtitle, so to speak. Managing your little flock of true believers is far more engaging than it has any right to be.
You've got followers with individual names and personalities, generated procedurally, but they stick, and you find yourself caring about them in a way that is probably a commentary on how cults actually work, and is making me profoundly uncomfortable in retrospect.
There's a follower I named Gerald.
Gerald was faithful. Gerald worked hard. Gerald tilled the fields and attended every sermon without complaint. And then Gerald got old, and I had to decide whether to grant him a peaceful death or sacrifice him on the altar for a power boost.
What did you do?
I sacrificed Gerald without hesitation, and I've thought about it every day since.
The game has mechanics for descent, illness, hunger, faith management. It's a proper resource loop that rewards attention. And the sermons, the rituals, the doctrine system where you literally choose what your religion believes in.
That doctrine system is quietly brilliant, by the way. You're choosing things like followers don't fear death or cannibalism is normal, actually, and unlocking them as genuine religious tenets. It's satire wearing the costume of a progression system.
And it works as both.
The boss designs are spectacular.
The 4 bishops, Leshy, Heket, Kalamar, and Shamora are phenomenal antagonist designs, and I will not be taking questions.
Each one rules over a distinct biome with its own visual identity, enemy types, and thematic flavor. Leshy is your woodland horror. Heket is this plague toad nightmare. Kalamar is a deep-sea anxiety spiral. And Shamora is a spider grandmother who has clearly had a time.
The boss fights themselves are well telegraphed, fair, and increasingly theatrical as you progress. They're not the hardest bosses you'll ever fight in a roguelite. Dark Souls, this is not. But they're memorable, which I'd argue matters more.
And the lore surrounding them, the idea that these are fallen gods who once worshipped the one-to-waits alongside your lamb patron, and that this is a war of deities fought through you, gives the combat emotional stakes that most roguelites frankly don't bother with.
The final boss is Chef's Kiss. Won't spoil it, but Chef's Kiss.
For a game with this many systems, roguelite dungeons, base management, cooking, farming, fishing, follower relationships, sermon scheduling, building placement, it is remarkably approachable.
The tutorial integration is smooth without being condescending. New mechanics are introduced at a pace that feels organic, rather than, here is your 6th tutorial pop-up in 30 minutes. Have you considered reading?
Save anywhere, runs that don't overstay their welcome, a base that you can leave and return to without everything having collapsed into anarchy. It's a game that understands you have a life outside of it.
Which is more than I can say for certain other games in this genre that shall remain nameless but rhyme with Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley?
I said what I said.
The Mez. 5 points of adequately shruggable shoulders. Here's where I start consulting my list of complaints, which I maintain for professional reasons and also because it brings me joy. The dungeon crawling, while fun, is not going to dethrone Hades, Enter the Gungeon, or even your mate's mediocre Unity project that has better enemy variety.
It's competent roguelite design that does everything adequately and nothing spectacularly. The weapon types are limited, the curse variety is thin in the early game, and runs can start feeling samey once you've learned the handful of enemy archetypes each biome offers.
It's the side dish that became the main course by accident. The base building is where the heart is, and the dungeons exist to feed that heart resources. Once you reframe it that way, it's fine. But if you came for a proper roguelite, you'll find yourself nursing a mild disappointment somewhere around hour 8.
A mild disappointment. Like finding out the restaurant you fancied has run out of the thing you wanted, so you have the second thing, which is perfectly nice.
Exactly. The second thing. Perfectly nice. Man number 2. The mid-game hits a treadmill.
There is a stretch, and if you've played the game, you know the stretch. Somewhere between getting your third follower traits upgrades and unlocking the final biome, where the game just sort of plateaus.
You've figured out the systems. You've established a functional code. Your followers are fed and reasonably brainwashed, and you're doing dungeon runs that feel less like exciting forays into the unknown and more like commuting to work.
The unlock curve flattens, new content arrives in smaller and smaller doses, and because the base management never becomes challenging, your followers mostly just need food, sleep, and the occasional plague cured, it turns into routine maintenance rather than engaging strategy.
It's not bad. I just stopped feeling anything for about 3 hours, which is concerning.
We've all been there, usually with AAA open world games.
Man number 3. The cooking and farming systems are thin.
You can grow crops, you can cook meals. Neither of these things is as interesting as the 15 minutes they take to unlock imply.
The farming is essentially just plant thing, wait, harvest, repeat. There's none of the satisfying crop planning geometry of Stardew Valley, none of the mechanical depth of a dedicated farming sim. It exists because the game needed a resource loop, and it functions, but it doesn't sing.
It's as saley exciting as making toast.
Artisanal toast, though, with sourdough.
Still just toast.
Your followers come in different animal skins, rabbits, deer, foxes, and so on, and they have procedurally generated names and personality traits that are charming at first. But the traits themselves have a limited pool, and by your 30th follower, you start feeling like you're running a cult of interesting on paper individuals who are all, functionally, the same person.
There are only so many times you can be told a follower is naturally curious before you've given up caring what that means mechanically.
The interactions are shallow. Gifting a follower a necklace raises their faith. They say something sweet, you move on. There's no emergent relationship depth, no rivalries, no friendships, no drama between followers that you didn't orchestrate.
Which is a missed opportunity in a game literally about community dynamics and religious control.
A significant missed opportunity, I'd argue.
Once you've beaten all 4 bishops and rolled credits, there's more to do. Achievements, optional quests, the Knucklebones dice minigame, which has its own elaborate quest line, but the motivational scaffolding has largely collapsed.
The main narrative drive is gone. Your cult is established. The enemy gods are defeated. You're just doing chores for the completionist brain now.
And while I respect that games exist to be played and not just beaten, the post-game content doesn't introduce enough new ideas to justify the continued investment. It's more the same minus the urgency.
The Knucklebones questline is genuinely lovely, for the record, but it probably deserved to be threaded into the main game rather than saved as a post-credits side dish.
The second thing again, still perfectly nice.
The bad. 5 points that required a stern letter to nobody in particular.
Bad point number 1. The base building camera and controls are a crime against spatial awareness. I want to talk about placing buildings, not playing the game, just the simple act of deciding where a structure goes and putting it there. It should not be a source of genuine frustration. And yet,
the grid snapping is inconsistent, the camera angle makes depth perception in the base genuinely misleading, and the process of rotating, placing, and adjusting structures has this sticky, imprecise quality that made me restart my base layout twice because what I thought I was building looked nothing like what I actually built.
For a game where you would spend easily half your playtime looking at and tinkering with your base, this is not a minor inconvenience. It's a structural flaw as persistent as a bad knee.
And given that the base is the emotional centerpiece of the whole experience, getting the construction feel wrong is like building a theme park where the entrance is a poorly lit staircase you keep tripping on.
You arrive battered and already irritated before the fun begins.
Bad point number 2. The faith system punishes efficiency in counterintuitive ways.
Here's a systems design complaint. Your followers' faith drops when you're away on dungeon runs, which makes sense. The shepherd is absent, the flock gets anxious. But the rate at which it drops, combined with the frequency of runs you need to make to progress, creates this tug-of-war where you're constantly firefighting faith instead of actually building your cult with any thoughtful intention.
You return from a dungeon run, 3 followers are dissenting, 1 is sick, another one has inexplicably eaten something off the ground despite having a perfectly functional food bowl 3 feet away, your sermon isn't ready yet, someone's about to start questioning their beliefs publicly and infect the others.
It's the cult management equivalent of trying to plate a restaurant meal while the kitchen is actively on fire.
Which, again, is arguably realistic. But realistic and fun are not synonyms, and this particular simulation of religious leadership stress tips into the latter territory more often than it should.
Better faith decay balancing would have smoothed this over significantly. A patch improved it post-launch, to be fair.
It's still annoying.
It's still annoying. Bad point number 3. The narrative underdelivers on its own premise.
Right, the story, which starts with the premise so loaded with potential that I'm still slightly grieving what it could have been.
You are a lamb. You are chosen by a forbidden god to build a cult and destroy the 4 bishops who imprisoned him. You gather followers. You perform dark rituals. You make your people believe in something terrible in exchange for community and purpose. The metaphor writes itself.
And then the game mostly doesn't write it.
The narrative beats are sparse and thin. The lore is there if you dig. There's genuine tragedy in the stories of the bishops, in what the one who waits actually is, in the lamb's own arc. But it's parceled out in bite-sized morsels that never cohere into something emotionally impactful.
The ending arrives with all the narrative weight of a politely closed door. Things are resolved. Fine. But the game never interrogates its own themes, the ethics of what you've done, the nature of faith, the question of whether building a cult of devoted believers is a good thing even if you're the one in charge. It gestures at these questions and then gets distracted by a fishing minigame.
There's a great game inside this good game that was too shy to show itself.
Bad point number 4. The difficulty curve is oddly front-loaded.
Leshy, the first bishop, is arguably the hardest point of the entire game, not because he's a brilliantly designed difficulty spike, but because you're learning the mechanics while also fighting a boss with limited upgrades, limited health, and limited understanding of what you're doing.
And then the game gets easier as you progress, which is the wrong direction entirely. By the time you reach Shimura, the final bishop, you're an ascended wool deity in a custom-built fortress of fanaticism, and the challenge has been largely digested by your ever-expanding power.
The roguelite progression, better gear, better fleeces, more powerful curses, outpaces the game's ability to keep challenging you. Hard mode helps, but it should have been the default mode.
Nothing quite kills the dramatic tension of a final act like breezing through it while whistling.
I wasn't whistling exactly, but I was certainly not tense.
And here's my most substantial complaint, and I'm giving it to Sterling to lead because she'll do it more justice than my tendency toward extended metaphors will allow.
Thank you, that's genuinely kind, and I'm suspicious of it. But yes, this. The game has the bones, the gorgeous bones of a meaningful satire about control, devotion, exploitation, and the machinery of belief. You are literally a cult leader. You are gaslighting people into faith, weaponizing their need for community, demanding their labor, controlling their diet and sleep, sacrificing them when it suits you.
And the game rewards you for all of it, cheerfully, without comment.
Which would be fine, even brilliant, if the game had a perspective, if there was a moment where your followers looked back at you with something complicated, if the doctrine system had consequences beyond mechanical buffs, if the ending reflected on what you built and what it cost.
Instead, your cult is wholesome. Your followers love you. The dark rituals are just part of the routine. There's no discomfort in the system that isn't immediately resolved by clicking the right button.
The game is satirizing cult dynamics while simultaneously making them feel aspirational, and I'm not sure it knows it's doing that.
You could read it as a deliberate choice that we, the players, are the real cult leaders, willfully ignoring the horror for the dopamine. But the game doesn't earn that reading. It doesn't challenge it. It just smiles and lets you keep going.
And that's a shame, because the vocabulary was all there. They just didn't finish the sentence.
So, Cult of the Lamb, a genuinely enjoyable, aesthetically stunning, mechanically competent game that is one draft of its own story away from being something truly special.
I'd recommend it wholeheartedly to anyone who likes roguelites, base builders, or games that make you feel briefly terrible about a fictional sheep you composted.
It is, in the final summation, a delightful box of biscuits with one flavor that's just slightly off. And if you can live with that, you'll have a very good time.
I give it would absolutely start a cult for out of 10.
I give it Gerald deserved better, but I'd do it again out of 10.
Same score, different regret.
Isn't it always?
Praise be.